Coming up next on The Voice of Alabama Politics, the AG says no standing. Also, the V team takes a look at a massive power grab. And Governor Bentley and his people, they don't like scrutiny.
Damn papers got no right sticking cameras up people's pants.
Up where? At his age, I thought Bentley'd done everything in his BVDs. All this and much, much more coming up next on The V. Welcome to The Voice of Alabama Politics, where we tackle the tough issues so you have the hard facts. I'm your host, Bill Britt, and as always, I'm joined by the V team. Welcome all.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Jack, you're looking bright and shiny today.
Well, I wouldn't say really.
No, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed?
Yeah, I'm bright-eyed and bushy-tailed.
Oh, okay. You look good. You look good.
Thanks.
The women always look good. You and I have to struggle, right?
We do. We do. Have to get up early.
You know, it's been an interesting week. The Republican caucus in the House elected a new majority leader and a new vice majority leader of the caucus. Beth, Nathaniel Ledbetter, what do we know about him?
Not a whole lot,
No.
to be honest. I mean, we know that he lost to Greason as a Democrat back in 2010, and then won that seat when it opened up when Greason ran for the Senate in 2014. But he's kind of flown under the radar, to be honest. He hasn't really spoken out and made a big hoopla of himself since he's been in there.
Yeah, Susan Brandon Googled him through his emails, and he had two occasions where he'd spoken about Mr. Ledbetter, but who was a former mayor up in Rainsville.
Right, he was up in the northern Alabama near Fort Payne. There's just not, he's really, like Beth said, been very far under the radar. But Brandon just couldn't find a lot of stuff he'd ever written on him, which is interesting because Brandon writes on everybody.
That's right. He's like, he writes on everybody.
I'm kind of happy to see a couple of newcomers.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
Connie Rowe is one of my favorite people,
Oh, yeah.
and she's vice chair. I think it's great.
Well, I talked to several lawmakers. You know, of course, he won. And, lawmakers said, look, we like his plan. He's got a plan. He laid it out. And, of course, I'm like you. Connie Rowe is she's the real deal. I mean,
She is.
I think she's going to
deal.
have Mac McCutcheon's back when he needs it.
Yeah. Well, so they have new leadership in the caucus. They have Nathaniel Ledbetter. We congratulate him, and Connie Rowe. Congratulate her
It's
as well.
good to see a woman coming into leadership,
She's the first. She's the first.
First.
So we're very excited about
You know,
that.
Democrats this year, I think for the first time now, have an assistant minority leader, and so Representative Coleman's taking that spot.
That's right.
So now we've
That's
got two
right.
women in
Yeah.
leadership in the House,
I mean,
which
it's
is
very-
absolutely fantastic.
Well,
Very, very
I wouldn't
exciting.
cross either one of them, Jack. Would you?
Hell no.
They're both harder than Chinese arithmetic.
Well, Connie used to be a police chief, and
Yeah.
Jasper, she's pretty tough.
Yeah.
Boy, when she gets into an issue, she gets her hands around it. She will not let go.
No, she won't. But anyway, we're happy for them. Happy for Anthony Daniels. I mean, he looks like he's going to do a great job. You know, he and Mac McCutchen have a great relationship. So you have
That's good.
the Democrat minority leader and the House Speaker both have good relationships. That's unheard of, actually. I don't think Craig and Mike got along that well.
Well, they did their weekly meeting that they're come to Jesus, but I don't think it was very much a two-way meeting whenever he go into that room.
Nothing was two-way. It was only one way with Mike. But I want to get to this prison bill. That's the hot topic all week. We're prisons all the time. Governor Bentley wants his $800 million prisons by hook or by crook. Susan, we did a story this week that said these Supermax-style prisons, we won't have any control over them. The voters don't have any control of them. We won't even know who does what.
Now, basically, the way they're trying to set them up is under the prison. They've formed a prison authority that consists of the lieutenant governor, the governor, isn't it, finance, and
corrections
and so forth. But ultimately, and who has the final say is the board. The board consists of the governor, the finance director, and the commissioner for corrections.
Right.
Now, the commissioner for corrections and the finance director serve at the pleasure of the governor. So that kind of says this is basically the governor driving this ship.
I mean, Jack, they'll have control of $800 million. They can buy prisons, they can lease prisons, they can do anything they want to with that money, and it doesn't show up on the state books.
That is the most insane thing I've ever heard in my life. $800 million. Unaccountable.
Right.
Yeah. Well, the only thing that'll show up on the books, because of the way they're doing the bond, is the lease payments. Basically, this group will build the prisons, own the prisons, and lease them back to the state.
Right.
So you don't see any expenditures, you don't see any income, you don't see any of those things except for that lease payment coming back.
But they're using with these bonds, they're using public bonds, and I understand it's the same type of bonds we usually use for like toll roads or hospitals or things that are expected to make money.
Exactly.
So if it's a private company building this, leasing it to the state, why don't they go get private loans to cover the building and then lease it back to the state? That's how it would work if I wanted to lease a piece of property to the state, right? I mean,
Yeah,
right.
I mean, it's kind of a scam, really, that started out in California and then Florida used it in a couple other places. And what they do is, normally bonds for a prison or something like that are general obligation bonds. So what they're doing is they're taking what some call a revenue generating bond, or lease revenue bond, and they're borrowing it under that. Well, that's something you do, like you said, for a toll road. But now we're going to do it, and that way Bentley and them get the money, and it's not just Bentley, it's whoever the next governor is, and whoever the next finance director. So if you don't trust Governor Bentley, you shouldn't do it.
And let me make something.
But if you don't trust the next, you don't even know who the next guy is.
I have to say this because I am sick and tired of legislators coming up to me in the State House and saying, I know you guys are against this prison thing. We are not against the prison renovation. We're against the way they're trying to do it.
It's got to be done above board.
It's got to be done above board. It's got to be done right. We can't have a situation like we have with the prison education where we allocate $9 million and they only get $4 million. This has got to be done right.
Look, the prisons need fixing. We all can agree that there's some fix. But even the Southern Poverty Law Center has said, this is not the fix to the court order from Judge Thompson. It's not the fix.
I mean, you would be insane not to think that we need new prison construction in Alabama.
You're right.
That is a given. But the way they're doing it is shady.
Yep.
We don't know where the prisons are going. We really don't know how much they're going to cost, or at least we haven't been told. I mean, $800 million is something. Is there even a study that has been produced?
There's actually is a study that they did. It's available on the Department of Corrections website. But the thing is I asked one of the people in corrections, and I said, didn't you have to have a prototype to figure out how many employees you were going to save for this? Oh, yeah, we have a prototype. I said, why don't you release it? They won't release it.
Well, the thing is, Beth, if I hire an architectural firm to find me a solution that they know I want, what do you think they're going to find me?
They'll find it. But the thing is, we're not putting the money in the budgets for more officers. We're not putting the money in the budgets for all of these other things that
or
fix...
for the Medicaid problem is not being addressed
mental
here.
health.
Mental health.
Because clearly the government's gone crazy.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to have to leave it right there. You're watching the voice of Alabama politics. If you're buying pensions, Bentley's got some. He wants to lease you. We'll be right back.
Azia Medical Spa offers a relaxing experience using customized skincare treatments and full line of physician-grade products, with professionals that can assist you in determining which treatment options will best help you achieve your desired results. Azia's massage therapies are popular for rejuvenation and relaxation, as well as relief of tired, aching, and sore muscles. Voted the best medical spa in Birmingham for 3 years in a row, visit aziamedicalspa.com to schedule your appointment.
Welcome back to The V, the voice of Alabama politics. Recently, State Auditor Jim Ziegler sent a request to the new Attorney General, Steve Marshall, asking that he give an opinion on Bentley's selection of the 2018 as a special election to replace the seat that was vacated by U.S. Senator Sessions. It is now occupied by Luther Strange, former Attorney General. And Marshall sent it back, Susan, saying he wasn't going to comment because Ziegler didn't have standing.
He did. You know, there's only certain people in the state that have standing to ask for an Attorney General's opinion on an election. The auditor is not one of them. So he really couldn't, I believe, legally answer him, because if you don't have standing in a case, then, am I right, Beth?
Look, what if Ziegler wanted to run for that Senate seat then? Are his rights as a citizen being violated? I mean, potentially all eligible people to run for Senate could be affected by this special election not being held.
Well, and I think the point, as we understand it, is that Ziegler asked in his capacity as auditor, and therefore he didn't have standing. My understanding is there is one guy that has ultimate standing, and that is Secretary of State John Merrill. Now, I think if Merrill asks for an opinion, he's probably going to get one, Jack.
Well, I don't, you know, the term forthwith that's in that a special election shall be held forthwith, there are many interpretations of that. And I don't know what would be wrong with Merrill asking the new Attorney General what, you know, if the 2018 date is acceptable.
Yeah, well, and I think the problem is, and I think it's been voiced several times, is that you're giving Luther Strange a 2-year advantage on someone else. And Beth, I think Representative Christopher England has pointed out time and again that there is no precedent for what Bentley has done.
Right, and Chris England is an attorney. He's a brilliant legal mind. I mean, he's not going to come out and say, I don't see how this is legal, if he doesn't have a path to justify what he's standing on. And when there are two valid sides to something, we need an impartial opinion. Now, the question is whether Steve Marshall is going to rule on, you know, Bentley, who appointed him, rule against him, or if he's going to need to recuse and hand it to a judge.
Well, I think one of the things we've seen about Steve Marshall is he's not afraid to do what's right, at least so far, right, Susan?
Exactly. He said, if there's an investigation against Bentley, I will recuse. 2 days later, he recused. I mean, I think we can trust him.
The only thing about the 2018 date is if I wanted to run, I would want that much time between now and 2018 to raise money, get my name out there, travel the state. I mean, anybody that would run against Luther in 90 or 120 days is going to be at a big disadvantage. So I have no problem with the 2018 date.
The problem I have with it is, let's define it constitutionally. Let's define this word one way or another, get the argument out of it.
Well, I think Christopher England made the case. If I told you that, you know, you loan me $100 and I'm going to pay you back forthwith, and then 2 years later I come up with your money, you're going to think that I didn't do a good job with that word forthwith. And I think
I think it's up for interpretation. I'm not being too hard on the governor for
then let's define it.
2018.
Let's define it.
Well, and listen, it's going to be what it is. I think there is a good lawsuit here. I think the right person can withstanding. I think if Merrill comes forward, we get a better understanding. And we're going to learn a lot more about Steve Marshall. I tell you, this guy's got a fan club like you wouldn't believe. Everybody I see, Steve Marshall's great. I'm like, okay, all right, we'll see. All proof is in the pudding, right, Jack?
Well, I talked to someone that I know who's in legal circles who had high praise for Marshall, so let's give him a chance.
Oh, yeah. Listen, everybody thinks this guy's the real deal, Beth, so pretty good. Something that is not the real deal in my mind, I think we only got about a couple minutes left, is the power grab that's happening over at the Office of Information Technology. You know, Office of Information Technology was created in 2013 by legislation, but they didn't put an agency underneath it, Beth. So you just got an office, there's a cabinet office, then an agency. Now they want to move ISD, which is the information services for the whole state, under that. Not only is it a cash cow, it is a great way to spy on everything and everyone that goes on. And they've already started moving to take it over, even though the legislation to enable them to take it over is not passed.
Yeah, I mean, you can't do anything before the legislation passes. That's how government works. Like, let's go back to I'm just a bill sitting on Capitol Hill. Like, that's how this works. And, I mean, the fact that they're moving on it, they're moving on that without approval, they're moving on the prison plan. I mean, it's gotten out of hand. We've got to get back to some sense of constitutional issues.
And for our viewers, they need to understand that this ISD, that is a huge pot of money. If something goes wrong with STARS and a department has to call ISD, that department has to pay for that phone call to technology, right? And this was the stick that Finance Director Bill Newton used to use, because it's basically a slush fund that they can use at their discretion.
Imagine a slush fund.
Yeah.
Well, and every finance director has always used it. It was odd that Clinton Carter said, I don't want it, but because...
Good for Clinton.
Yeah, and I think the fact is he knows he's not an IT guy. He wants it under IT. But is this the right IT? This woman, Dr. Hale, who actually is not an employee of the state, she's an employee of the University of Alabama.
And nothing's fishy going on with them right now.
Oh, no. And, that's the only, they wrote it in such a way that the bill doesn't, the statute doesn't make her have only one job like it does everybody else. I mean, we only got about 1 minute, so I want to recognize...
And these are top tier salaries too. Let's not forget that.
Oh, well, she's getting $220 plus tenure plus benefits plus bonus. I mean, blah 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 blah. Don't get me started. Her next guy in line gets $165. I mean,
when one piece of technology in the state goes right, I will believe that these people have earned their money. Until then,
there you go.
Yeah. We must congratulate Terry Lathan on being reelected, the chairman of the Alabama Republican Party. The members saw fit to give her another shot at it, and by all accounts, she's done a good job.
If I could have voted, I would have voted for Terry. I think even though she's unopposed, she's done a really good job.
Yes,
She's a credible. She's very credible and honest, I think, and it's high time we had that.
Well,
and who is the Democrat chair now, Beth?
It is Nancy Worley. She has not been reelected yet, so we'll see how that goes. But I think Terry Lathan's wonderful, and she always takes the jokes when I poke at her on Twitter too. So that's nice.
Yeah,
and if the Democrats had a Terry Lathan or Beth Clayton, they'd be doing a lot better too. But we're going to have to leave it right there,
I
John.
like Nancy, though.
Oh, I like her.
All the Republicans do.
We're going to have to leave it right there. You're watching The V, the voice of Alabama politics. Coming up next in the People's House with Speaker Mac McCutcheon. Welcome back to The V, the voice of Alabama politics. We're in the People's House with Speaker Mac McCutcheon.
Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, you've inspired me to call it the People's House.
Well, that's good, and that's the appropriate name for it.
Yeah. Busy week. This week, the Republican caucus elected a new majority leader and an assistant or vice. Could you tell us about that and how it went?
Well, it went well. The members were very open about the new elections, and we had the voting process. We had some great candidates that ran, and they all had an opportunity to speak before the caucus, and we ended up electing Representative Nathaniel Ledbetter as the leader. And so he'll be the majority leader moving forward. And then we had the election of the vice chair for the caucus, and that was Representative Connie Rowe from Walker County.
Well, I know that Mr. Ledbetter, Representative Ledbetter, he's up from my neck of the woods over in Rainsville, and And Connie Rowe, of course, she's a good one. We know her very well.
Well, she is a good one, and both of them have been leaders within our caucus. And they stood up and took a leadership role, and I'm very proud of both of them. And like I say, we had some good elections, and we had good candidates, and there was just a good cooperative spirit among the caucus, because we respected Leader Hammond and his decision to step down and open up that door for some new leadership. So everybody was excited.
Well, we don't personally know Representative Ledbetter, but we look forward to getting to know him. And the speakers, all the folks that we've spoken with, speak very highly of him.
Good. Well, I think everybody will be happy. I know the caucus is very happy.
You spoke at a gathering of pro-life that we had the Family Advocacy Day. That was a big event here this week. And can you share a little bit about what you saw there and what your thinking is?
Well, it's always good to have our pro-life advocates come to the State House and come meet with legislators and talk about their issues and their concerns. One of the things that I wanted to put in place this year was to have a pro-life day. And we want to make sure that we've got all of the pro-life legislation that has gone through the process, that is ready to be debated on the floor, put into a day where we can concentrate on that for two reasons. One, it helps us concentrate on the pro-life issue.
Right.
That way the debate that we have is focused on pro-life issues and family. The other thing is that those supporters and advocates, when they come, they don't have to come 2 or 3 times during the session day, and it's convenient for them. Because many of them bring their families.
Sure.
Because it is a family advocacy day, and so it works out well for them and it helps them some. So we're excited about that.
Well, and it was good to have those folks. I know there's a lot of folks advocating on that behalf. I mean, people talk about pro-life state. We are a pro-life state by a majority. And sometimes those issues don't ever make it through the House or the Senate. They've just died on occasions, and it's sometimes hard for people to understand how that happens.
Well, and you know, when you look at the process, there's differences of opinion, of course, on any piece of legislation. When you look at pro-life, there's some debate going on now about certain pieces of pro-life bills, if you will, that have been challenged in the court system.
Right.
And some members are saying, well, we have spent so many dollars defending some of these bills. If we know that the court might enjoin this or have a issue with this certain bill, why do we want to put the state through that expenditure?
Sure.
So, and that's a legitimate debate.
It is.
But still, it doesn't take away from the real issue of pro-life and family value.
And I think that the family idea is something that, you know, I think we all want to embrace. It's part of our heritage and part of who we are as people. But sometimes, I mean, right now we've got children in poverty. We've got families in poverty, and I know you're working on some things to bring folks out, and this budget is going to be a big part of that. How do we allocate the funds? I know that process is starting this next week, right?
It is. The budget process will start. We're beginning to get reports and meetings with Chairman Klaus in the House, who's chairman over the Ways and Means Committee, and they'll start meeting this next week. They're already working on the dollars that we have available. They've received the governor's budget, and they're looking at it in comparison to what we would like to see in the legislature. One thing to remember about this budget is that, of course, we don't have all of the dollars that we need.
Right.
But we're looking ahead, which I think is responsible to do this. We're looking ahead because we've got this one-time money that's sitting there from the BP oil settlement. We want to make sure that we don't spend every dollar that we have and then look into this next year where we're looking at over $100 million deficit. We're trying to work it to where we can pay our bills this year, move forward with our programs, and then save a little bit of money to go into the next year.
Well, I know you told us earlier that you want to do long-term thinking and not this let's just patch the tire and see how much further we can make it down the road.
That's right, and you know, that issue is very important right now because we're moving into an election year.
Right.
We'll finish this session and then we go into election mode. Well, we could spend every dollar that we have this year, and it would be justified, but we're going to spend all of that money, which is one-time money, then we're going to look into an election year and we're going to come up with a huge deficit. Well, is it smart for us to spend all of our money this year, knowing that we're going to have a problem next year? Oh, I don't think that's good business.
No, it isn't.
And we need to be looking ahead. I remember in 2006, when we came down here in 2007, the state had a huge growth. The economy was great.
Right.
We were moving. We spent every single dime we had, and then the recession hit us. And I look back on that time, and I'll never forget it. I'm thinking, why didn't we manage our money better? The taxpayers deserve that.
As a law enforcement officer, you probably pulled a few fellas out of a bar who had spent all their money not thinking about tomorrow.
Well, that's right. That's exactly right.
And,
Yeah.
you know, that I always reminds my dad used to say, spending money like a drunken sailor or whatever.
I had a fella tell me one time, I was booking him in jail, and he was drinking and been in a fight, but anyway, long story short, he kept telling me, he said, it's going to take every dollar I've made this week to bond me out of jail. So that fits the story.
Yeah, it's kind of like the legislature. Right? They spend every dollar to bond them out of jail.
That's right.
Anything else on your mind this week? I know there's a lot going on.
Well, we had a good week in the House. We were able to pass a few bills yesterday. We stayed late and worked hard. We were able to pass the judges' reallocation bill,
Right.
which I think is a smart way for us to try to get as much service out of our judges in the state as we can, and try to help some of these counties that are overloaded with cases.
Right.
So I think that was a good bill to pass, and I hope the people noticed that. And that was a bill that was passed in the Senate. We passed the House version, substituted the House version for the Senate version, and sent it on over to the governor.
Well, I know it's been a busy week. People are really, I talked to several legislators over the last couple of days, said, I'm having fun for a change.
Well, good,
Yeah.
good. That's good. We've got a lot of work to do, but sitting in that chair, you have a view of the entire House body.
Sure.
And for me to watch the members work among each other, I mean, it's chaos on the floor.
Sure.
Everybody's multitasking.
Sure.
But to watch them work together, slapping each other on the back, shaking hands, laughing a little bit, getting involved in the debate, that's a very rewarding thing.
Yeah. Well, we want to thank you for your service to the state, and thank you for being on our show.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Once again, we want to thank Speaker Mac McCutcheon for inviting us into the People's House. You've been watching The V, the voice of Alabama politics. You watch us because we watch them.